Have you ever been scrolling online or maybe watching the news and you see a piece of art that's sold for a price that just, well, it breaks your brain a little? We're talking millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. Today, we're going to figure out why. What is really going on behind that mind-boggling price tag?
And to really get to the bottom of this, believe it or not, we're going to talk about an actual banana. No, seriously.
Okay, so this is an artwork by the Italian artist Maurizio Cattelan. It's called Comedian. And yeah, it's exactly what it looks like. He went to a local market in Miami, bought a banana, and then duct taped it to a gallery wall. That's it. That's the piece.
So what's the price for something like that? Well, in 2024, a cryptocurrency entrepreneur named Justin Sun paid a jaw-dropping $6.2 million for it. And then, get this, at a press event, he just peeled it and ate it. So how on earth can a banana be worth more than a mansion? To figure that out, we need to peel back the layers that make up an artwork's price. So layer number one starts with the physical object itself. But it's not just about what you can see. It's about its secret history and how well it's been preserved. You know, an artwork's price is super tied to its physical condition. There's what they call the apparent condition, what you or I would see if we just walked up to it. But then there's the true condition. That's what a professional conservator finds when they get out the special lights and microscopes. A tiny flaw, totally invisible to you, can mean a huge, huge drop in value. Any serious collector or museum will demand something called a condition report. Just think of it like a complete medical checkup for a piece of art. It's this super objective document that lists every single imperfection, and it is absolutely critical if you don't want to make a very, very expensive mistake. And the language they use to talk about damage, it's wild. We're not just talking about a simple rip or a scratch. No. Experts use these incredible terms like cockling, which is when paper gets all wavy, or foxing, those little rust-colored spots, or craquelure, that spiderweb of tiny cracks you see on an old oil painting. Even the slightest hint of any of these can absolutely tank the price. So, beyond its physical health, you have to look at an artwork's provenance. That's its ownership history. This paper trail is key to proving it's the real deal, not a fake. But it's more than that. If a piece was once owned by, say, a really famous collector, it gets what's called a narrative premium. You're not just buying the object anymore, you're buying its story. All right, so the object itself has a history and a physical condition that gives it value. But who actually decides what that's worth? For that, we've got to peel back the next layer and look at how the market is built to protect and inflate that value. You see, the art world is this really structured system, and it has some very powerful gatekeepers. Right at the top, you've got the tastemakers. These are the mega collectors who can literally make an artist's career overnight. Then you have the intellectuals, the critics and museum curators who give the art its academic stamp of approval. Below them is the haut monde, or high society. Think hedge fund managers and aristocrats buying for social status. And holding it all together are the functionaries, all the lawyers and bankers who handle the money. And these folks all operate in two different but connected markets. First is the primary market. This is when an artwork is sold for the very first time, usually through a gallery that's been carefully managing the artist's career and setting those initial prices. Then you have the secondary market. That's every sale after the first. And this is where the big auction houses come in, testing those prices and often blowing them up into those crazy headline-making records. Okay, so we have the object itself, and we have a market that's designed to pump up its value. But that still doesn't quite explain why someone would spend this kind of money. For that, we need to get into our third layer, the mind of the buyer. And here's where things get really weird economically speaking. We have to talk about something called a Veblen good. Now, with most things, say a gallon of milk, if the price goes up, people buy less of it, right? Simple. But for a Veblen good, the opposite happens. The more expensive it gets, the more people want it. The whole point is to show off how much you can afford to spend. It's a behavior called conspicuous consumption. And this quote from the economist Thorstein Veblen just nails it. He basically argued that for some art, the extreme price tag is the main appeal. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's a signal of extreme rarity and status. In other words, the cost itself becomes a kind of beauty. Which brings us right back to that banana. The guy who bought it wasn't just buying a piece of fruit and some tape. He was buying the story, the status, the sheer absurdity of it all. For conceptual art like this, that outrageous price is the punchline. The purchase itself becomes a wild piece of performance art. But hold on, we're not done yet. That price you read about in the headlines, it's almost never what the buyer actually pays. So let's peel back one final layer and look at the huge hidden fees that get tacked on at the very end. So when you win something at an auction, the price the auctioneer yells when the gavel comes down is called the hammer price. But that's not what you actually write the check for. On top of that, you have to add what's called the buyer's premium. It's a big fee, a percentage that goes straight to the auction house just for the privilege of winning. And this fee has been climbing and climbing for decades. It started out at 10% back in 1975. Now the top auction houses can charge as much as 25% on the first few $100,000 of a sale. It has become an absolutely massive source of income for them. Let's just walk through how this works. Say you win a painting and the hammer price is exactly $1 million. Great. Now add the buyer's premium at about 25%. That's another $250,000. Then you have to add sales tax, which, by the way, is calculated on the total of both of those. All of a sudden, your $1 million painting is actually costing you $1,350,000. So really, when we ask why art is so expensive, there's no single, simple answer. A price isn't just a number. It's this carefully built thing. It's a combination of the object's unique history and condition, the thumbs up from a closed system of experts, the psychology of social status, and a big stack of hidden fees. Which kind of brings us back to that banana, doesn't it? When a work of art is famous not for what it is, but for what it costs, it really makes you wonder about what we value. When the price tag itself is the main event, what is it that we're truly collecting?